Colorado tries a first-in-the-nation warning system, sending truckers messages right in their cabs.
So we know that there's a challenge there with drivers that are just not familiar with our mountains.
The billionaire owner of the Nuggets and Avs agrees to keep the teams in town. All Denver had to do was give him permission to build a new mini-city. Next viewers want to know where the fans are going to park. MSU Denver offers a class that feels and sounds like home. And tonight, we're talking about speech and its impact on society, on and off the college campus. What happens when disagreement turns ugly or when people can't agree on the facts?
Honestly, it tends to feel just like a brick wall and kind of the end of that conversation.
Live from the campus of the University of Denver, you're on the road tonight with Next. Welcome to the University of Denver. Ahead of tonight's community conversation, media and democracy. What happens when we can't agree on the facts? More on that in a moment. We begin tonight with messages of a different sort. These are messages that the state of Colorado is sending to truckers, sending directly into their cabs to warn them about dangers in the high country. It is new, potentially life-saving technology. Our Mark Salinger has that.
All right, he's on the brakes.
We definitely have some unique challenges for truck drivers in Colorado.
From Golden to Morrison to Conifer and all those times in the high country, over and over again, we've seen how dangerous it can be for trucks to drive through Colorado.
So we know that there's a challenge there with drivers that are just not familiar with our mountains.
Captain John Hahn is trying to make things safer. Colorado State Patrol is the first in the nation to install virtual geofences on roads that send alerts to drivers in their cabs when they pass through them.
We can select any location that we choose along our highway system so that when that truck drives through that geofence, through that electronic gate, that message will pop up in front of them.
Messages like slow down, shift gears, sharp curves ahead. They're using it at the Eisenhower Tunnel, and so far, it's working.
We've seen about a 4.3 mile per hour reduction in speed for those trucks that are going westbound that hit that geofence and get that message.
Yeah, it could help tremendously.
Strop Maurer is a professional truck driver and owns CDL 303, the only trucking school in Colorado that has classes specializing in mountain driving.
In my perspective, I think you need to up your game 25% by being in the mountains.
While technology can help, training is even more important. State Patrol says 65% of all the trucks that end up in runaway truck ramps in the mountains are driven by drivers with less than 5 years of mountain driving experience.
You have a lot on your plate as far as being in the mountains.
We're trying to reach those drivers that don't get an opportunity to drive in Colorado's mountains.
Now the warnings are sent automatically straight to the front seat of the truck.
It really is a matter of us trying to find everything that we can do to try to keep people safe.
The messages pop up in the electronic driver logs that all trucks have, though people have to subscribe to them. Of course, that leaves open the possibility that some small trucking companies that often cause some of those biggest crashes that we've seen don't actually sign up for those alerts. So far, Kyle, they've sent out more than 16,000 alerts to drivers.
Yeah, Mark, if there's one thing we've learned through your relentless reporting on these trucking company issues, it's that the companies who don't want to follow the rules are not going to follow the rules. For the trucking companies that are going to follow the rules and get these alerts, how is the state determining where the geofencing warnings are set up?
Yeah, so State Patrol is using crash data that they're taking from throughout the state to try and figure out where to put those geofences up and what those messages should say. It's really pretty interesting technology. You just drive right through them and the message appears in those truck cabs.
Certainly worth a try. Mark Salinger, thank you. So perhaps we look back on this moment a decade or two down the road as the time in which Denver's second downtown was put in motion, a newly approved plan to build a second city of sorts around Ball Arena, connecting Lodo to Mile High. Now, something tells me that we are not going to be calling it Cronky Town for the billionaire owner of the Nuggets and Avs who is actually developing this land, but decades from now, if we do, remember where you heard it first. So this is a 70-acre parcel of land, and part of the deal is that they have agreed to turn it into not just offices and retail and not just high-end condos, but also affordable housing and parks and bike lanes. This is a 20-year-long project to replace these parking lots. As part of the deal to develop the land around Ball Arena, Stan Kroenke's promising to keep the Nuggets and Avs in town until 2050, and they'll be right there at the center of what's designed to be a walkable corridor from Coors Field to Ball Arena to Mile High.
Instead of being what you know a stadium to be, which is a stadium with 50 acres of parking around it, This will change that and now turn this into an entire neighborhood. So when you walk out of Ballerina, you'll have restaurants to go to, you'll have bars to drink at, you'll also have apartments to live in. You'll have childcare facilities here on site.
So approval for this project hinged on what's known as a neighborhood agreement. So that's a deal with a number of community groups on things that they want out of the project. What do they want and what have they been promised? 18% of the housing will be affordable housing. 20% of the businesses in the area will be owned by women and minorities. City Council in return has agreed to allow the developer to build higher than the current height restrictions for that area. What that means is that some mountain views from the current downtown will be obstructed in the future. Our next question came in from a ton of you. Robert, Karen, Susan, Eric, Lisa, so many others who all wanted to know, when Kroenke's new development replaces parking lots around Ball Arena, where are Nuggets and Avs fans who drive to games going to park? So that was far and away the most frequent question that we got about this new development, the parking. So it came up at last night's City Council meeting, and a Kroenke rep told Council that while they are going to try to prioritize public transit, right, light rail runs through there as well as biking and pedestrians and so forth, there will be parking. It will be built into the new buildings on the site.
And you are going to park in a new development, which has buildings and garages. We'll have a shared percentage of that garage for people to come to. So if you're driving in from where I live, Greenwood Village, you drive into for a game, your ticket would show you to go to this garage within an office building. No one's there during at night. Our Avs game is at night. And you can park in that open garage.
It's a good question. Clearly it was on a lot of people's minds. Send us your next question. You can ask about anything in Colorado. You are not the only one wondering, I promise you. We welcome written or video questions. Email them to next@9news.com or text next 303-871-1491. So we're here outside the Newman Center on the campus of the University of Denver for a community conversation tonight. Media and democracy. What happens when we can't agree on the facts? DU Chancellor Jeremy Haffner and I are going to discuss the impact on education, on journalism, and on the general public. Because if you spend any time with us here on Next, you know that this is a topic that we talk about somewhat frequently, right? The danger of misinformation and conspiracy theories. And you see it here within our own community. We know from past examples that that kind of thing is not harmless. It truly does ruin lives. It tears apart families. It leads us to distrust our neighbors and to build up walls around our communities, both online and in real life. So tonight we're going to discuss why Americans are increasingly, it seems, choosing to build up those walls and how we might break through. We will be live streaming this conversation thanks to DU at 7 o'clock tonight. You will find that live stream on 9news.com. Our next conversation tonight is with a group of DU students here on campus. We discussed a related issue that deals with speech and deals with disagreement. We discussed whether they feel comfortable expressing their views on campus and in class, whether they feel comfortable correcting misinformation that is offered by their peers, and whether they feel comfortable disagreeing with the prevailing view in class.
I sometimes kind of just go radio silent of if it's a situation that I don't fully understand and if there's any amount of risk to it. I even find myself just keeping my mouth shut and holding my head down.
I think there's a lot of fear involved in disagreeing with people right now. I think there's an idea that if you mess up and you say something that was incorrect or offended somebody, if you do that once, your social life is gone, your professional career is gone. Like, everybody's scared of being the next clip that goes viral on TikTok. I mean, even coming into this space and having this conversation, that's something that's in the back of all of our minds. Like, are we gonna be the next clip that hits the news and then we're not able to get a job because we're too controversial?
I feel like having that educational or community standpoint where people are able to discuss what they think, and this is very impossible, but without the fear of acknowledging that they might be wrong or they might have been misled. But I feel like if we're able to introduce an environment or a community where people are not scared to admit that or are willing to educate themselves in whatever way, that's the best way we can go, really.
You're not going to change someone's opinion overnight, and so like being intentional and making progress like slowly, like I think being able to do your own research first and then have those ideas and know that like you've looked at an issue from every angle, and then slowly being able to present that. Like, it takes time.
You know, we're polling from different groups, different perspectives from all of these different places. Students tend to disengage because it is such a small community. You don't want to be the outlier there, whether your opinion is statistically true or not. So students just tend to kind of disengage and keep their head down and whatnot, but that also can kind of lead to resentment.
I would not say that they paint a hopeful picture, but I certainly appreciate their honesty. When we return here, a black homeowner says her property was undervalued at the same time that so many home values were skyrocketing in Denver. Federal prosecutors believe her, and they're taking on a mortgage giant.
I think it's really cool that this is the type of music that kind of spreads Mexican culture.
A unique college music class for the culture. Next. A homeowner in Denver is at the center of a federal lawsuit against Rocket Mortgage. She claims that racism by appraisers made it harder for her to refinance her house. The Justice Department here believes her. They say that local appraisers undervalued her home by comparing it not to her neighbors, but by comparing it to black-owned homes in another neighborhood. This is a newly filed federal lawsuit that says the DOJ and the Department of Housing and Urban Development believe that Rocket Mortgage and their third-party appraisers violated the Fair Housing Act. The complaint alleges that this black homeowner in the Hale neighborhood tried to refinance her home in January 2021. That, of course, is at a time when interest rates were falling, property values were rising. But her home was appraised at $200,000 less than appraisal from just a year before and lower than the sale prices of several comps within a mile of her house. The lawsuit claims that the appraisal actually compared her home to the sale prices of homes in neighborhoods farther away, neighborhoods that had higher concentrations of black homeowners. When the homeowner raised concerns to Rocket Mortgage, her refinancing application was canceled. Rocket Mortgage called the suit, quote unquote, government overreach.
A clash of seasons. We have a winter wonderland in the mountains and foothills, while down here along the Front Range, we have a warm summer-like day in fall with temperatures some 10 to 15 degrees above average. The evening drive is well underway with fair skies and light winds. Should have a pretty sunset now with just enough cloud cover out there. The clouds coming in to northwestern Colorado following the jet stream up and over the top of this brand new ridge of high pressure, which is building over the area. But this current weather pattern will give way to a new weather pattern next week. There's the chance for not only colder weather, but rain and snow next week. And that could mean the impact of that would be our first freeze and maybe the rain mixing with snow on Wednesday. So certainly a good impact with a weather change and a pattern change that could bring us some beneficial moisture, and wow, do we need it. We've cooled back to 70 in Denver after a high of 76. Temperatures this hour very comfortable. Winds are light, but tracking the wind as we do expect it to increase ahead of a dry front on Thursday. That will bring elevated fire danger. Not much in the way of mountain snow for the next couple of days. So we're really going to focus on that longer range forecast for next week. Temperatures in the 60s, dropping into the 50s overnight tonight. A few high clouds drifting in, but really a quiet 24 hours. So the changes come later. We're sunny and warm at 74 tomorrow, windy and warm Thursday, cooler Friday, great weekend for football. Chance for some rain showers on Tuesday, possibly mixing with snow as early as Wednesday morning.
Music in general is a thing that really allows for everyone to connect. Really, it's a language without words.
It is where culture meets classwork at MSU Denver. Next. When you hear music major, perhaps you think of classical music. I tend to think of my mother. She was a high school band teacher. MSU Denver wants you to hear music major and think mariachi. Angeline McCall has that.
When music is already a language of its own.
Music in general is a thing that really allows for everyone to connect. Really, it's a language without words.
Mariachi takes an unspoken language and makes it emotional and meaningful.
And for mariachi, it comes from such a deep part of our culture.
When it changes key, it goes to do.
MSU Denver offers this class to allow students to see their own culture in the classroom.
This is one of the main reasons I came to this university, the Mariachi program. Está bien lejitos.
William Treviso learned mariachi through his dad,
Because he's my dad, I feel very proud of him.
who is the instructor here today.
It's really an honor to see young people like what it's something that I'm so passionate about, something that came from my culture, that is not even from this country, and people in this country falling in love with it because you see people from all types of diversities learning mariachi.
So let's go 1, 2, 3, 1. Bum, 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 ba-da-da-da-da.
This class is Renee Whitney Rivera's favorite of the week.
It's the type of music that really spans the borders of like different races of people, different ethnicities, different kinds of people. It spans languages. Okay.
Her family is from the Dominican Republic.
Especially like Latino culture in general, we share a lot of values. We share a lot of like different senses of community and stuff like that. So when I'm with the mariachi groups that I play in, I feel right at home.
Both William and Whitney plan on being music educators themselves.
I also think it's really important that students feel seen and that their cultures are represented no matter what.
A class that makes them feel seen and heard through a language they can share by playing together.
It's really healing for me. It's healing for the soul, for your body, for your mental state. It really, nothing but happiness, what I feel.
Not only is there a class for mariachi at MSU, there's also a club called Mariachi Los Correcaminos, where many of the same students in the class perform in their evenings and weekends if you ever want to check them out. Kyle?
That's great stuff. Angeline McCall, thank you very much. We are back with a final word from the University of Denver and your feedback next. I'm back one last time on the beautiful campus of the University of Denver. Shame they couldn't have found us a nice spot to stand or anything. But DU is convening the community tonight for a conversation that is open to the public on media and democracy. What happens when we can't agree on the facts? If you would like to watch it tonight via live stream, we will have that on 9news.com starting at 7 o'clock. And you know, of course, I welcome your thoughts on anything you hear tonight. You can email next@9news.com with those thoughts or text next at 303-871-1491. We finish as always with your feedback, and Shirley emails in tonight talking about the DU students that we heard from before around speech issues on campus. Shirley writing, what wonderfully articulate young people you presented today. She says, I'd love to have had any and all of them in my classes. A text, absolutely love the backdrop for next tonight. That is a relief, because my greatest fear all day today was that enough of you were going to write in saying that it was fake, that I was going to have to turn around, drop my microphone, and drop in a pond. The real ones, no. I wouldn't have done that. Photographer Chris volunteered to do it for me. Thanks for being with us. See you next time.